I still remember the exact moment my entire career crumbled before my eyes. There I was, standing in the executive conference room of Mitchell Industries, the same company where I'd spent 6 years climbing from the manufacturing floor to the VP of Operations office, staring at my father as he announced that my brother Kevin would be taking over as president and my new role would be customer service representative on the third floor. The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. But that devastating blow was just the beginning of discovering how little my family truly valued everything I had sacrificed for their business. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The mahogany conference table reflected the harsh fluorescent lighting as I tried to process what had just happened. My father, Robert Mitchell, stood at the head of the room with his hands clasped behind his back, the same authoritative posture he'd maintained throughout my childhood when delivering decisions that were final and non-negotiable. Kevin sat to his right, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly apartment payment, his expression carefully neutral but unable to completely hide the satisfaction flickering in his eyes. The irony wasn't lost on me that this was happening in the same room where I'd presented my cost-saving initiatives just 3 months earlier, proposals that had ultimately saved Mitchell Industries over $2 million annually. The same room where I'd negotiated our largest contract with Ford Motor Company, a deal that had secured jobs for our 400 employees through the next 5 years. The same room where I'd spent countless late nights during the supply chain crisis, working with our teams to keep production running when other manufacturers had shuttered their operations entirely. My father cleared his throat, breaking the uncomfortable silence that had settled over the room like morning fog over Lake Michigan. Patricia Wells, our CFO, shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her pen clicking rhythmically against her notepad in a nervous habit I'd noticed during particularly tense board meetings. Michael Barnes, our HR director, studied his laptop screen with unusual intensity, avoiding eye contact with anyone at the table. Kevin had returned from Chicago just 8 months ago, fresh from his consulting position with a prestigious firm downtown. His MBA from Michigan State University had been frequently mentioned in conversations about the company's future direction, usually by our father, who seemed to believe that advanced degrees somehow translated directly into manufacturing expertise. During Kevin's absence, I had been the one implementing efficiency improvements, building relationships with our union representatives, and ensuring our automotive parts met the increasingly stringent quality standards demanded by our clients. The transition had been gradual at first. Kevin started as VP of Sales, a position that allowed him to focus on client relationships and strategic planning while staying removed from the day-to-day operational challenges that I handled. Our father had framed it as bringing fresh perspective to the business, combining Kevin's strategic thinking with my operational experience. The collaboration had seemed logical, even beneficial, during those early months. But subtle changes had begun almost immediately. Kevin would schedule meetings with key clients without informing me, despite operational considerations that affected delivery timelines and production schedules. He'd present strategic initiatives in executive meetings that directly contradicted operational realities I'd outlined in previous discussions. When I'd raise concerns about feasibility or implementation challenges, Kevin would defer to his consulting experience, suggesting that my perspective was limited by being too close to the operational details. Our father had always favored Kevin, though he'd never admitted it explicitly. Growing up, Kevin's academic achievements were celebrated with family dinners and new privileges, while my practical accomplishments were acknowledged with brief nods and expectations that I would continue performing at the same level. When Kevin expressed interest in business school, Dad had proudly written the tuition checks and bragged to colleagues about his son's ambition. When I'd requested additional training in lean manufacturing techniques, I'd been told to find cost-effective online courses that wouldn't impact my work schedule. The pattern had continued into our professional relationship at Mitchell Industries. Kevin's strategic recommendations were implemented with enthusiasm and adequate budget allocations, while my operational improvements were scrutinized for cost-effectiveness and potential disruption to established processes. Kevin's networking events with potential clients were funded as necessary business development, while my requests to attend industry conferences were evaluated based on immediate return on investment calculations. Dorothy Stevens, our longtime executive secretary, had been with Mitchell Industries since its founding 35 years ago. She'd watched both Kevin and me grow up, attending our graduations and celebrating our career milestones with the genuine affection of an extended family member. After the meeting concluded and the conference room emptied, she lingered near her desk just outside the executive offices, pretending to organize files while clearly waiting for an opportunity to speak with me privately. The manufacturing floor buzzed with activity below us, the familiar sounds of precision machinery and quality control processes that had become the soundtrack of my professional life. I'd started my career down there, learning the intricacies of brake component manufacturing from experienced technicians who'd taught me to identify quality issues by sound and touch. Those early months had been challenging but invaluable, providing me with operational knowledge that proved essential when I later moved into management roles. Kevin had never worked on the manufacturing floor. His introduction to Mitchell Industries had been through summer internships in the accounting department during college, followed by his immediate placement in the sales division upon his return from Chicago. He understood financial projections and market analysis, but had never operated the specialized equipment that produced our automotive components. He'd never worked a weekend shift during peak production periods or negotiated with union representatives during contract renewals. My phone vibrated with a text message from Rachel Kim, my closest friend since college who worked in marketing for a competing automotive supplier across town. She'd been following my career progression at Mitchell Industries with enthusiasm, celebrating each promotion and achievement as if they were her own. Her message was brief but loaded with concern. She'd heard rumors through industry connections about significant changes happening at Mitchell Industries and wanted to
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Confirm that everything was proceeding smoothly with the succession planning. The succession planning had been an ongoing topic of family conversations for the past 2 years, ever since our father had announced his intention to step back from daily operations and transition toward a chairman role. At 58, Robert Mitchell remained energetic and engaged, but he'd begun expressing interest in spending more time with our mother Linda at their lake house and pursuing the charitable foundation work that had become increasingly important to both of them. I'd assumed, perhaps naively, that my 6 years of dedicated service, operational expertise, and demonstrated leadership during challenging periods had positioned me as a serious candidate for increased responsibility in the succession plan. My performance reviews had been consistently positive, my cost-saving initiatives had exceeded expectations, and my relationships with both employees and clients had strengthened the company's reputation for reliability and quality. Kevin's consulting experience was certainly valuable, but it seemed insufficient preparation for leading a manufacturing company with 400 employees and complex operational requirements. Strategic planning was important, but Mitchell Industries needed leadership that understood production schedules, quality control processes, supplier relationships, and the practical challenges of meeting automotive industry standards in an increasingly competitive market. The demotion to customer service representative felt particularly cruel because it represented a complete dismissal of everything I'd accomplished and learned during my years with the company. Customer service was important work, but it was also entry-level work that required none of the operational knowledge, client relationships, or strategic understanding I'd developed. It was a position that anyone with basic communication skills and computer literacy could perform adequately. More troubling was the message this demotion sent to our employees, particularly the manufacturing teams who had worked closely with me during process improvements and efficiency initiatives. These were experienced professionals who understood the value of operational expertise and practical knowledge gained through hands-on experience. Seeing someone with my background relegated to an entry-level position would inevitably raise questions about the company's commitment to promoting from within and valuing practical experience alongside formal education. The financial implications were also significant. My salary as VP of Operations had allowed me to purchase my downtown loft and begin building substantial savings for my future. The customer service representative position would represent a dramatic decrease in income, potentially forcing me to reconsider my living situation and long-term financial planning. The reduced salary would also affect my retirement contributions and my ability to pursue additional professional development opportunities. Michael Barnes knocked softly on my office door later that afternoon, his expression conveying the awkwardness of his position as HR director during this transition. He'd been tasked with handling the administrative details of my role change, including the paperwork for my salary adjustment and the logistics of moving my belongings from the 12th floor executive suite to a cubicle on the 3rd floor. His discomfort was evident as he explained the timeline for the transition and the training schedule for my new responsibilities. The training schedule was perhaps the most insulting aspect of the entire situation. I would be required to complete the same orientation program provided to all new customer service hires, including modules on company history that I could have taught myself, product knowledge that I possessed in greater depth than the training materials provided, and customer interaction protocols that seemed elementary compared to the client relationships I'd managed as VP of Operations. Kevin had scheduled a family dinner for that weekend, ostensibly to celebrate his promotion and discuss the transition plans in a more relaxed setting. The invitation had been extended through our mother, who'd called with forced enthusiasm about bringing the family together during this exciting time of change for Mitchell Industries. Her tone had suggested that she was aware of the underlying tensions, but hoped that a family gathering might smooth over any awkward dynamics. The prospect of sitting through dinner while Kevin discussed his vision for the company's future, probably referencing strategic frameworks and market positioning concepts from his consulting background, felt almost unbearable. The idea of congratulating him on an appointment that had effectively ended my own career trajectory required a level of family diplomacy that I wasn't sure I could muster. Carol Henderson, our former VP of Strategic Development who had retired 2 years earlier, had maintained relationships with several current employees and stayed informed about company developments through informal networks. She'd called that evening, ostensibly to catch up on personal matters but clearly aware of the day's announcements. Her carefully neutral tone conveyed both sympathy for my situation and recognition of the complicated family dynamics that made open discussion of the situation challenging. Carol had worked closely with both my father and me during her final years with the company, contributing to succession planning discussions and strategic initiatives that had shaped Mitchell Industries' current market position. Her operational experience and institutional knowledge had made her an invaluable resource during my transition into management responsibilities. Her retirement had created a knowledge gap that I'd worked to fill through additional training and close collaboration with our most experienced team members. The conversation with Carol revealed her concerns about Kevin's preparedness for operational leadership, though she expressed these reservations diplomatically and with careful attention to family sensitivities. She'd observed similar situations at other family-owned businesses, where succession decisions based primarily on family relationships rather than operational competence had created significant challenges for both the companies and the families involved. Her suggestion that I document my accomplishments and contributions to Mitchell Industries struck me as both practical and necessary. Over 6 years, I'd implemented numerous improvements and managed various projects that had contributed significantly to the company's success, but many of these achievements had been presented as team efforts or integrated into broader strategic initiatives. Creating a comprehensive record of my specific contributions would provide clarity about my value to the organization and might prove useful in future discussions about my role and responsibilities. The documentation process would also help me evaluate my options moving forward. While family loyalty and emotional attachment to Mitchell Industries were important considerations, my professional development and financial security were equally valid priorities. If the family business could no longer provide opportunities that matched my skills and ambitions, exploring external opportunities might become necessary, despite the personal complications that such a decision would create. David Park, my boyfriend of 2 years, worked as a project manager for a construction company that had no connection to the automotive industry or my family's business. His outside perspective on corporate dynamics and family business challenges had often provided valuable insights during previous workplace situations. His reaction to the day's events was characteristically direct and unfiltered, focusing on the practical implications rather than the emotional complexities. David's questions about my legal options and potential recourse highlighted aspects of the situation that I hadn't fully considered. While family businesses operated with different dynamics than publicly traded corporations, certain employment law protections still applied, and the dramatic nature of my demotion might warrant consultation with an employment attorney. The possibility of discrimination based on gender, age, or other protected characteristics was worth exploring, particularly given the pattern of preferential treatment that Kevin had received throughout his career with the company. The legal consultation would require careful consideration of potential consequences for family relationships and my long-term connection to Mitchell Industries. Pursuing legal action against a family business would inevitably create permanent damage to personal relationships and probably eliminate any possibility of future reconciliation or career advancement within the company. However, accepting the demotion without challenge would also set problematic precedents and potentially enable similar treatment of other employees in the future. Sleep came fitfully that night, interrupted by alternating waves of anger, disappointment, and uncertainty about the future. The familiar sounds of downtown Grand Rapids traffic and the distant hum of late-night activity provided a comforting backdrop that contrasted sharply with the turmoil in my mind. My loft had always been a sanctuary where I could decompress from workplace stress and focus on personal interests and relationships. Now it felt like the only space where I could process the magnitude of what had happened without pretending to accept decisions that fundamentally undermined my professional identity and future prospects. The morning brought no clarity, only the stark reality that I would need to begin the process of transitioning from an executive role to an entry-level position, while maintaining professional composure and family relationships. The challenge seemed almost insurmountable, requiring a level of emotional discipline and strategic thinking that I'd never needed to apply to my own career circumstances. The path forward remained unclear, but one thing had become certain during that sleepless night. I would not accept this situation passively, regardless of the complications and consequences that active resistance might create. The next chapter of my story was about to begin, though I had no idea where it would lead or what price I might pay for fighting back against a system that seemed designed to favor my brother's ambitions over my demonstrated capabilities and years of dedicated service. The downtown offices of Torres and Associates occupied the 7th floor of the Hartwell Building, a renovated historic structure that housed several law firms specializing in employment and labor disputes. Amanda Torres had built her practice representing employees in workplace discrimination cases, wrongful termination suits, and family business disputes that involved employment law violations. Her reputation for thorough case preparation and aggressive advocacy had made her the preferred attorney for workers facing complex situations where personal relationships complicated professional grievances. The mahogany bookshelves lining her office walls displayed an impressive collection of employment law texts, case precedents, and industry publications that reflected her expertise in navigating the intersection of family dynamics and workplace rights. The afternoon sunlight streaming through her corner windows illuminated framed certificates and professional awards that testified to her success in securing favorable outcomes for clients facing seemingly impossible odds against well-established companies and influential families. Amanda reviewed the notes I'd prepared documenting my 6 years with Mitchell Industries, my progression through various roles, and the specific circumstances surrounding Kevin's appointment and my subsequent demotion. Her questions were precise and methodical, designed to identify potential legal violations while understanding the broader context of family business operations and succession planning decisions that might complicate any potential case. The complexity of family business employment law became apparent as Amanda explained the various factors that courts considered when evaluating workplace disputes involving relatives. Family businesses operate under different expectations regarding informal decision-making processes, flexible role definitions, and overlapping personal and professional relationships that could either strengthen or weaken potential legal claims depending on specific circumstances and documentation. My situation presented several potentially viable legal theories, though each carried significant risk and limitations that would need careful consideration before proceeding. The dramatic nature of my demotion from VP of Operations to Customer Service Representative suggested possible discriminatory intent, particularly when combined with the pattern of preferential treatment that Kevin had received throughout his career with the company. However, proving discriminatory intent in family business contexts required substantial evidence beyond circumstantial patterns of favoritism. The timing of Kevin's appointment and my demotion raised questions about whether adequate consideration had been given to my qualifications and performance record before making succession decisions. Employment law generally required that personnel decisions be based on legitimate business factors rather than personal preferences or family relationships. Though family businesses enjoyed broader discretion in leadership succession than publicly traded corporations with independent boards of directors, gender discrimination represented another potential legal avenue, given the historically male-dominated culture of manufacturing industries and the possibility that my father's succession planning had been influenced by unconscious biases about women's capabilities and operational leadership roles. Proving gender discrimination would require evidence that similarly qualified male employees would have been treated differently under comparable circumstances, which could be challenging to establish given the unique family dynamics involved. Amanda's experience with similar cases provided valuable perspective on the practical challenges of pursuing legal action against family businesses. The discovery process would inevitably expose confidential business information and private family communications that could be embarrassing or damaging to relationships, regardless of the legal outcome. Depositions would require family members to testify under oath about their decision-making processes, potentially revealing unflattering motivations or creating permanent divisions within the family structure. The potential remedies available through legal action included reinstatement to my former position, monetary damages for lost wages and career advancement opportunities, and injunctive relief requiring changes to company policies and procedures. However, the effectiveness of these remedies in family business contexts was often limited by practical considerations about ongoing working relationships and the ability to function effectively in roles restored through legal compulsion rather than genuine recognition of qualifications. Amanda recommended beginning with a comprehensive documentation process that would strengthen any potential legal claim while providing time to explore alternative resolution strategies. This documentation would include detailed records of my accomplishments and contributions to Mitchell Industries, evidence of Kevin's preferential treatment and rapid advancement despite limited operational experience, and communications or witness statements that might support claims of discriminatory intent or inadequate consideration of my qualifications. The documentation process would also serve an important personal function by helping me gain clarity about my own career trajectory and professional goals independent of family business dynamics. 6 years of working within a family company had created certain assumptions about career progression and success metrics that might not apply in other organizational contexts. Evaluating my skills, experience, and market value objectively would provide important perspective, regardless of whether I ultimately pursued legal action or sought opportunities elsewhere. Rachel Kim met me for coffee at Bistro 42 that Thursday evening, choosing our usual corner table that provided privacy for conversations about workplace challenges and career decisions. Her background in marketing for a competing automotive supplier gave her valuable industry perspective on talent management practices and succession planning approaches used by other family-owned businesses in the region. Her outside viewpoint on my situation was particularly helpful because she understood the automotive industry culture while remaining unbiased by family loyalties or personal relationships with Mitchell Industries personnel. Rachel's immediate reaction focused on the practical implications of my situation rather than the emotional aspects of family disappointment and career disruption. Her marketing experience had exposed her to numerous family business dynamics across the automotive supply chain, and she'd observed similar patterns of succession planning that prioritized family relationships over demonstrated competence and operational expertise. Her perspective on industry standards for leadership development and promotion criteria provided valuable context for evaluating whether my treatment at Mitchell Industries was consistent with best practices in comparable organizations. The conversation with Rachel also revealed opportunities that I might not have considered while focusing primarily on the immediate crisis at Mitchell Industries. Her industry connections included several competing automotive suppliers that were actively seeking experienced operations managers with my background and qualifications. The automotive industry's competitive talent market meant that my operational expertise and client relationships represented valuable assets that other companies would recognize and compensate appropriately. Rachel's suggestions about networking opportunities and industry events provided a roadmap for exploring external career options while maintaining my current position at Mitchell Industries. The process of investigating alternative employment opportunities would serve multiple purposes, including establishing my market value, building professional relationships outside the family business context, and creating leverage for potential negotiations about my role and responsibilities at Mitchell Industries. The timeline for making decisions about my future became an important consideration as Amanda Torres had emphasized the importance of documenting ongoing workplace treatment and exploring resolution options before the situation deteriorated further. Employment law included various statutes of limitations for filing complaints, and certain types of evidence might become unavailable if too much time elapsed between the discriminatory actions and the initiation of legal proceedings. Carol Henderson agreed to meet for lunch the following week, suggesting a quiet restaurant outside Grand Rapids where we could discuss the situation without concern about being overheard by Mitchell Industries employees or business associates. Her institutional knowledge of the company's history and previous succession planning discussions would provide crucial context for understanding the decision-making process that had led to Kevin's appointment and my demotion. Carol's perspective on family business succession planning was informed by her experience with multiple transitions during her 22 years with Mitchell Industries. She'd witnessed the evolution of company culture and leadership approaches as the business grew from a small family operation to a significant regional manufacturer with complex operational requirements and substantial employee responsibilities. Her observations about effective succession planning practices and common pitfalls would help me understand whether my situation reflected normal family business dynamics or represented unusual departures from standard practices. The conversation with Carol would also provide important information about Kevin's preparation for leadership responsibilities and the specific qualifications that our father had considered when making succession decisions. Understanding the rationale behind Kevin's appointment might reveal whether the decision had been based on legitimate business considerations that I had failed to recognize, or whether personal preferences and family dynamics had inappropriately influenced the selection process. Dorothy Stevens had worked closely with the executive team throughout the succession planning discussions, managing scheduling for family meetings and maintaining confidential files related to strategic planning initiatives. Her position as executive secretary provided unique insight into informal communications and decision-making processes that might not be reflected in official company documents or board meeting minutes. Her long-standing relationship with the Mitchell family gave her perspective on historical patterns of decision-making and family dynamics that could illuminate the current situation. The challenge of approaching Dorothy for information required careful consideration of her position within the company and her loyalty to the Mitchell family. As a long-term employee approaching retirement, she had strong incentives to maintain positive relationships with company leadership while avoiding involvement in family conflicts that could jeopardize her pension benefits and retirement security. However, her genuine affection for both Kevin and me might motivate her to provide information that could help resolve the situation constructively. Dorothy's observations about employee reactions to the succession announcement would also provide valuable information about the broader impact of these personnel changes on company morale and operational effectiveness. The manufacturing teams and supervisory staff had worked closely with me during various improvement initiatives, and their reactions to my demotion would influence productivity, quality control, and workplace culture in ways that could affect overall business performance. Michael Barnes faced a particularly difficult position as HR director during this transition period. His professional responsibilities included ensuring compliance with employment law requirements while supporting company leadership decisions and maintaining positive employee relations. The dramatic nature of my role change created potential liability issues that he would need to address carefully while navigating the complex family dynamics that influenced all personnel decisions at Mitchell Industries. The conversation with Michael about my transition to the customer service role revealed his discomfort with the situation and his recognition of the potential legal and operational problems it created. His suggestion that I document any concerns about the transition process and his willingness to discuss alternative approaches to my role reassignment indicated that he understood the problematic nature of the current arrangement and might be receptive to modifications that would address some of the more egregious aspects of my demotion. Michael's experience with employee relations and workplace conflict resolution provided valuable perspective on potential internal remedies that might address my concerns without requiring external legal intervention. His knowledge of company policies and procedures would help identify whether proper protocols had been followed during the succession planning process and whether alternative approaches might be available for addressing my situation within existing company frameworks. The weekend family dinner at my parents' house in East Grand Rapids loomed as an unavoidable confrontation that would test my ability to maintain family relationships while advocating for my professional interests. The dinner would provide the first opportunity for private conversation with Kevin about his plans for company leadership and his perspective on my role in the organization's future. It would also allow me to gauge my parents' understanding of the employment law implications and their willingness to consider modifications to the current arrangement. The prospect of sitting through dinner conversation about Kevin's vision for Mitchell Industries while pretending to accept my relegation to an entry-level position required a level of diplomatic skill that I wasn't confident I possessed. The family gathering would inevitably include discussions about company strategy, operational challenges, and industry trends that I was better qualified to address than Kevin, yet my new position in the organization would make it inappropriate for me to contribute substantively to these conversations. The social dynamics of the family dinner would also provide insight into how my parents viewed the succession transition and their understanding of the impact it had on my career prospects and financial security. Their reactions to any concerns I raised would influence my decisions about pursuing legal remedies and exploring external employment opportunities. The dinner would serve as an important test of whether family relationships could survive the professional conflicts created by the succession planning decisions. Stephanie Mitchell, Kevin's wife, had always maintained friendly relationships with extended family members, though her background in pharmaceutical sales provided limited insight into manufacturing operations and family business dynamics. Her perspective on Kevin's readiness for operational leadership and his plans for company restructuring would reveal important information about the strategic direction he intended to pursue and the role he envisioned for existing management personnel. The conversation with Stephanie might also provide insight into Kevin's personal motivations and career goals that could help me understand whether his appointment represented a long-term commitment to Mitchell Industries or a stepping stone toward other opportunities. If Kevin viewed the family business as a temporary career move or a platform for developing skills applicable elsewhere, his approach to personnel decisions and operational management might reflect different priorities than those of someone committed to building a sustainable family enterprise. The manufacturing floor atmosphere had shifted noticeably since the succession announcement, with veteran employees expressing confusion and concern about the leadership changes through informal conversations and subtle changes in workplace behavior. The experienced technicians and supervisors who had worked closely with me during process improvements and efficiency initiatives understood the value of operational expertise and hands-on knowledge in manufacturing environments. Their reactions to my demotion reflected broader concerns about the company's commitment to promoting from within and recognizing practical experience alongside formal education credentials. Many of these employees had advanced through the organization based on demonstrated competence and operational knowledge rather than academic achievements, and my situation raised questions about their own career prospects and job security under new leadership that might prioritize different qualifications and advancement criteria. The union representatives had also taken notice of the personnel changes, though their official response would depend on whether my situation violated collective bargaining agreements or established precedents for management personnel decisions. The United Auto Workers Local that represented Mitchell Industries production employees had historically maintained cooperative relationships with company leadership, but dramatic changes in management structure and personnel policies could strain these relationships if employees perceived unfair treatment or discrimination. The weekend approached with a mixture of anticipation and dread as I prepared for conversations that would shape my immediate future and potentially determine my long-term relationship with the family business that had defined my career identity. The documentation process was underway. The legal consultation had provided clarity about available options, and the preliminary conversations with industry contacts had revealed promising alternative opportunities. The next phase would require direct confrontation with family members about decisions that had fundamentally altered my professional trajectory and personal financial security. The stakes could not have been higher. The outcome of these conversations would determine whether I could rebuild my career within Mitchell Industries through negotiated modifications to my role and responsibilities, or whether I would need to pursue legal remedies and external opportunities that might permanently damage family relationships. The path forward remained uncertain, but my commitment to advocating for my professional worth and career prospects had solidified into unwavering determination to achieve a resolution that recognized my contributions and restored appropriate opportunities for advancement. The evening light reflected off the Grand River as I walked along the downtown waterfront, considering the multiple strategies and potential outcomes that would soon be tested through direct engagement with the family dynamics that had created this crisis. The familiar sounds of the city provided comfort and perspective as I prepared for battles that would require every skill I'd developed through 6 years of operational leadership and family business navigation. The fight for my career was about to begin in earnest, and I intended to approach it with the same determination and strategic thinking that had made me successful in every other professional challenge I'd encountered. Amanda Torres had scheduled a follow-up meeting for early the next week to review the documentation I'd compiled and discuss specific strategies for approaching Mitchell Industries about potential resolution of my employment situation. The legal framework was now clear, the evidence was being systematized, and the alternative options were being explored through industry contacts and networking opportunities. The foundation had been established for whatever actions would be necessary to restore my career trajectory and professional dignity. The consultation with Amanda had also provided important perspective on the broader implications of my situation for other family businesses and employees facing similar challenges. Employment law existed to protect workers from discriminatory treatment and unfair personnel decisions, regardless of family relationships or business ownership structures. My willingness to challenge these decisions might establish important precedents that could benefit other employees in comparable situations while demonstrating that family business leaders were not exempt from basic fairness and legal compliance requirements. The personal cost of pursuing legal action remained a significant concern, but the cost of accepting discriminatory treatment without challenge had become equally problematic. My professional identity, financial security, and career prospects were at stake, and passive acceptance of unjust treatment would establish precedents that could affect my future opportunities and personal satisfaction for years to come. The decision to fight back was becoming less optional and more essential for maintaining my self-respect and professional integrity. Rachel's industry connections had already generated preliminary interest from two competing automotive suppliers that were actively recruiting experienced operations managers with backgrounds in lean manufacturing and process improvement. The initial conversations had been encouraging, with compensation packages and advancement opportunities that exceeded what I had achieved at Mitchell Industries even before my demotion. The external market validation provided important confidence and leverage for any negotiations with family members about my future role in the company. The prospect of leaving Mitchell Industries permanently remained emotionally difficult, despite the professional opportunities it might create. 6 years of building relationships with employees, developing operational expertise, and contributing to company growth had created strong attachments that extended beyond immediate family dynamics. The manufacturing teams, supervisory staff, and support personnel had become professional colleagues and personal friends whose well-being would be affected by my departure and the broader instability created by leadership transitions based on family preferences rather than operational competence. The weekend family dinner would provide the first opportunity to gauge whether any possibility existed for internal resolution of the employment situation or whether external remedies would be necessary to achieve appropriate recognition of my qualifications and career aspirations. The conversations with Kevin and my parents would reveal their understanding of the legal and practical implications of their decisions while testing their willingness to consider modifications that might address the most problematic aspects of my current situation. The documentation process had already revealed patterns of decision-making and communication that supported potential legal claims while providing clarity about my own contributions to Mitchell Industries' success. The systematic review of performance evaluations, project outcomes, cost savings initiatives, and client relationship development had created a comprehensive record of achievements that demonstrated my value to the organization and my qualifications for continued leadership responsibilities. The legal consultation had also highlighted the importance of maintaining professional behavior and documentation during the transition period to avoid any actions that might undermine potential claims or provide justification for adverse employment decisions. Amanda Torres had emphasized the need to continue performing assigned duties competently while documenting any additional instances of unfair treatment or discriminatory behavior that might strengthen legal arguments. The next phase of this challenging situation would require careful balance between family relationship preservation and professional advocacy, between legal strategy and personal integrity, between immediate tactical decisions and long-term career planning. The complexity of the challenges ahead was daunting, but the foundation had been established for addressing them systematically and effectively through multiple coordinated approaches that would maximize the probability of achieving a satisfactory resolution. The Heritage Room occupied the top floor of the historic Amway Grand Plaza, its panoramic windows offering spectacular views of Grand Rapids skyline and the meandering Grand River below. The restaurant's elegant atmosphere and private dining alcoves made it a preferred location for important business discussions and family celebrations among the city's professional community. My parents had selected this venue for what they described as a celebration dinner honoring Kevin's promotion, though the underlying tension surrounding my situation cast a shadow over any festive pretenses. Kevin arrived first, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that emphasized his executive bearing and confident demeanor. His handshake was firm and professional as we exchanged polite greetings, though his eyes betrayed a wariness that suggested he understood this dinner would involve more than congratulatory toasts and family bonding. His recent promotion had elevated his status within the company and the broader Grand Rapids business community, but it had also placed him at the center of family dynamics that were becoming increasingly strained and complicated. Our parents entered the private dining room with practiced smiles and carefully choreographed enthusiasm, their body language reflecting decades of experience managing family situations that required diplomatic navigation of competing interests and conflicting emotions. Dad's gray suit and conservative tie projected the authoritative presence that had served him well throughout his career building Mitchell Industries from a small machine shop into a regional manufacturing powerhouse. Mom's elegant black dress and understated jewelry conveyed the sophisticated social grace that had made her an effective partner in business networking and community engagement activities. The conversation began with safe topics about restaurant selections, recent weather patterns, and community events that allowed everyone to settle into their roles while avoiding immediate discussion of workplace tensions and succession planning controversies. The servers provided attentive service without intrusiveness, refilling water glasses and presenting menu options with the professional discretion that upscale establishments maintained for clients who valued privacy during sensitive conversations. Dad raised his wine glass in a formal toast, acknowledging Kevin's appointment as president of Mitchell Industries and expressing confidence in his ability to lead the company through the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead in the evolving automotive manufacturing sector. His words emphasized Kevin's educational credentials, strategic thinking capabilities, and fresh perspective on industry trends that would benefit the organization during its transition toward more sophisticated business practices and expanded market opportunities. The toast conspicuously avoided any mention of my role in the company's history or my contributions to operational improvements that had strengthened Mitchell Industries' competitive position and financial performance. The omission felt deliberate and pointed, reinforcing the message that my value to the organization had been permanently diminished and that my future involvement would be limited to entry-level responsibilities that required no specialized knowledge or leadership capabilities. Kevin's response to the toast reflected his discomfort with the situation while acknowledging the significance of his new responsibilities and expressing appreciation for the confidence that had been placed in his leadership abilities. His comments about building on the strong foundation that had been established at Mitchell Industries included general references to teamwork and collaborative efforts, though he avoided specific acknowledgement of individual contributions that might highlight the controversial nature of recent personnel decisions. The dinner conversation gradually shifted toward business topics as our parents inquired about Kevin's initial observations and priorities as the incoming president. His responses demonstrated familiarity with strategic planning frameworks and market analysis techniques that he had learned during his consulting career, though his limited operational experience became apparent when discussions touched on manufacturing processes, quality control systems, and supplier relationship management that formed the core of Mitchell Industries' competitive advantages. Kevin's vision for the company emphasized efficiency improvements through automation and technology integration, cost reduction strategies that would enhance profit margins, and market expansion initiatives that could diversify the customer base beyond traditional automotive clients. His strategic approach reflected contemporary business school thinking about operational optimization and growth planning, though his recommendations sometimes conflicted with practical realities of manufacturing operations and established customer relationships that required careful management and deep institutional knowledge. The conversation revealed Kevin's intention to restructure various aspects of company operations, including reorganization of management responsibilities, evaluation of staffing levels across different departments, and implementation of performance measurement systems that would align employee incentives with strategic objectives. His proposed changes reflected standard consulting methodologies for organizational improvement, though their application to family business contexts required sensitivity to established relationships and cultural dynamics that might not be apparent to external observers. When Dad inquired about Kevin's plans for existing management personnel, the response provided insight into my future prospects within the reorganized structure. Kevin explained that he intended to evaluate all positions based on strategic requirements and performance metrics, emphasizing alignment between individual capabilities and organizational needs. His diplomatic language suggested that additional personnel changes might be forthcoming as he implemented his vision for operational excellence and strategic positioning. The implications of Kevin's restructuring plans became clearer as he described his intention to bring in external expertise to supplement existing capabilities in areas where additional skills or perspectives might be beneficial. His references to recruiting experienced professionals from other organizations indicated that promotional opportunities for current employees might be limited, particularly for positions that required specialized knowledge or strategic thinking capabilities that he believed were currently lacking within the company. Mom's questions about employee reactions and workplace morale during the transition period revealed her awareness of potential challenges associated with significant organizational changes and leadership transitions. Kevin's responses emphasized his commitment to transparent communication and collaborative decision-making processes that would engage employees in improvement initiatives while maintaining productivity and quality standards during periods of adjustment and uncertainty. The discussion about employee engagement strategies provided an opportunity for me to contribute insights based on my experience working directly with manufacturing teams, supervisory personnel, and support staff throughout the organization. My observations about effective communication approaches and change management techniques reflected practical knowledge gained through implementing process improvements and efficiency initiatives that had required significant coordination and collaboration across multiple departments and functional areas. Kevin's reaction to my contributions revealed his discomfort with my continued involvement in strategic discussions and operational planning activities that he apparently viewed as outside my current role and responsibilities. His subtle dismissal of my suggestions and redirection of conversation toward topics where he felt more confident indicated that he intended to minimize my influence on company decisions, regardless of the relevance or value of my experience and expertise. Dad's response to the dynamic between Kevin and me suggested his awareness of the growing tension while indicating his preference for avoiding direct confrontation about personnel decisions that had already been finalized and implemented. His comments about the importance of everyone finding their appropriate place within the reorganized structure conveyed his expectation that I would accept my reduced status without further challenge or discussion about alternative arrangements that might better utilize my capabilities. The conversation about my current assignment to customer service responsibilities revealed the family's perspective on the transition and their expectations for my future involvement with Mitchell Industries. Dad's explanation emphasized the valuable learning experience that customer service provided for understanding market dynamics and client needs, though his rationale for placing someone with my background and experience in an entry-level position seemed forced and unconvincing, even to himself. Kevin's comments about the importance of all employees understanding customer perspectives and market requirements reflected standard business rhetoric about customer-focused organizations, though his application of these principles to my specific situation seemed more about justifying predetermined decisions than about optimizing organizational effectiveness or employee development. His suggestion that customer service experience would provide valuable preparation for future opportunities within the company lacked specificity and credibility. Given the dramatic nature of my demotion, the discussion about future opportunities and career development possibilities within the restructured organization provided insight into whether any realistic prospect existed for restoring appropriate responsibilities that matched my qualifications and experience. Kevin's vague references to potential advancement based on performance in current assignments offered little encouragement, particularly given his apparent preference for external recruitment and his discomfort with my continued involvement in strategic discussions. Mom's attempts to smooth over the workplace tensions and maintain family harmony through diplomatic language and optimistic projections about future possibilities reflected her traditional role as family mediator and relationship manager. Her suggestions about patience and trust in Kevin's leadership decisions indicated her expectation that I would adapt to the new circumstances without pursuing confrontational approaches that might damage family relationships or create negative publicity for the company. The dinner conversation gradually revealed the extent to which family members had different understandings of appropriate workplace behavior and personnel decision-making processes in family business contexts. Dad's assumption that family loyalty would take precedence over professional considerations and employment law requirements reflected generational differences about workplace expectations and legal obligations that employers must meet regardless of family relationships or business ownership structures. Kevin's education and consulting experience had apparently provided limited exposure to employment law requirements and human resources best practices that applied to personnel decisions in family businesses. His comfort with making dramatic organizational changes without considering legal implications or employee relations consequences suggested that he might be unprepared for the complexity of managing a manufacturing organization with unionized employees and established workplace policies. The conversation about company culture and employee relations revealed significant differences in perspective about leadership approaches and management responsibilities that would influence the organization's future direction and workplace atmosphere. Kevin's emphasis on performance metrics and efficiency optimization reflected contemporary business thinking, though his limited experience with manufacturing operations and union relationships might create implementation challenges that required more collaborative and relationship-focused management approaches. The discussion about industry trends and competitive positioning provided an opportunity to demonstrate my knowledge of automotive manufacturing
Requirements and market dynamics that would affect Mitchell Industries' strategic planning and operational decisions. My insights about customer expectations, quality standards, and supplier relationships reflected practical experience that complemented Kevin's theoretical knowledge while highlighting the value of combining strategic thinking with operational expertise. Kevin's response to my industry analysis revealed his growing irritation with my continued involvement in business discussions and his preference for establishing clear boundaries between his strategic responsibilities and my customer service assignments. His dismissive attitude toward my contributions indicated that he viewed my operational knowledge as less valuable than his strategic planning capabilities, despite evidence that manufacturing companies required both perspectives for effective leadership and decision-making. The tension between Kevin and me became increasingly apparent as the dinner conversation progressed, with each exchange highlighting our different approaches to business challenges and organizational management. His preference for data-driven decision-making and systematic analysis conflicted with my emphasis on relationship building and practical problem-solving that considered human factors alongside financial and operational considerations. Dad's growing discomfort with the underlying conflict between his children became evident through his attempts to redirect conversation toward neutral topics and his increasingly forced enthusiasm about company prospects under Kevin's leadership. His body language and verbal responses indicated his recognition that family dynamics were complicating business decisions in ways that might require more direct intervention and resolution than he had anticipated when making succession planning decisions. The discussion about specific operational challenges and improvement opportunities revealed the extent of Kevin's limited familiarity with manufacturing processes and quality control systems that formed the foundation of Mitchell Industries' competitive advantages. His general responses to technical questions and his tendency to defer detailed discussions until later consultations with operational personnel indicated that he would be heavily dependent on existing expertise while implementing his strategic vision. My detailed knowledge of production processes, supplier relationships, and customer requirements became apparent through specific examples and practical solutions that demonstrated the value of hands-on operational experience in manufacturing environments. The contrast between my practical expertise and Kevin's theoretical knowledge highlighted the importance of combining strategic planning with operational competence for effective leadership in manufacturing organizations. The dinner conversation concluded with polite expressions of optimism about the company's future prospects and family unity during the transition period, though the underlying tensions remained unresolved and potentially more problematic than before the gathering. The family's different perspectives on appropriate workplace behavior, personnel decision-making processes, and conflict resolution approaches suggested that internal remedies might be insufficient for addressing the fundamental issues surrounding my employment situation. Kevin's departure from the restaurant with perfunctory expressions of appreciation for the dinner and vague commitments to continued family communication indicated his eagerness to conclude discussions that had revealed uncomfortable truths about his preparation for leadership responsibilities and his handling of personnel decisions. His apparent relief at ending the family gathering suggested his awareness of the growing tensions while indicating his preference for avoiding direct confrontation about controversial decisions. Dad's concluding comments about the importance of family unity and support during challenging transition periods reflected his continued hope that loyalty and patience would resolve workplace conflicts without requiring external intervention or significant modifications to established succession plans. His emphasis on trust and cooperation indicated his expectation that I would accept current circumstances while working constructively within the organizational structure that had been implemented. The drive home through Grand Rapids' quiet evening streets provided time for reflection on the dinner conversation and its implications for my immediate decisions about legal action, family relationships, and career planning. The gathering had confirmed my growing understanding that internal resolution of my employment situation would require significant changes in family attitudes and business practices that seemed unlikely given the perspectives that had been expressed during our discussions. The documentation of this family interaction would provide valuable evidence for potential legal proceedings while demonstrating my attempts to resolve workplace conflicts through direct communication and collaborative problem-solving approaches. Amanda Torres had emphasized the importance of maintaining detailed records of all interactions related to my employment situation, including family conversations that might reveal discriminatory intent or inappropriate decision-making processes. The evening had also clarified the extent of Kevin's commitment to maintaining organizational changes that minimized my role and influence within Mitchell Industries. His defensive responses to my contributions and his apparent discomfort with my continued involvement in business discussions suggested that negotiated internal remedies would face significant resistance from someone who viewed my reduced status as necessary for establishing his own authority and leadership credibility. The next phase of addressing my employment situation would require careful consideration of legal options, external career opportunities, and family relationship preservation strategies that balanced personal integrity with practical considerations about long-term consequences and achievable outcomes. The dinner conversation had provided valuable information about family dynamics and business priorities while confirming the necessity of pursuing multiple approaches to achieve appropriate resolution of my workplace concerns and career prospects. Dorothy Stevens had requested a private meeting the following morning, suggesting that she had information relevant to my situation that required confidential discussion away from company offices and potential oversight by other personnel. Her long tenure with Mitchell Industries and her position managing executive communications provided unique insight into decision-making processes and family dynamics that might not be apparent through official company documents or formal business interactions. The meeting with Dorothy would provide another important perspective on succession planning decisions and their implementation while potentially revealing additional information about employee reactions and operational concerns that had not been addressed through official channels. Her willingness to meet privately suggested her recognition of problems with current arrangements while indicating her personal concern about workplace fairness and employee treatment that extended beyond her formal job responsibilities. The conversation with Dorothy would also provide insight into potential internal allies and sources of support within the organization who shared concerns about recent personnel decisions and their impact on company culture and operational effectiveness. Her knowledge of employee sentiment and workplace dynamics could inform strategic decisions about timing and approaches for addressing my employment situation through internal or external remedies. The legal consultation scheduled for the following week would benefit from the additional information gathered through family interactions and employee conversations that had revealed patterns of decision-making and communication relevant to potential claims of discriminatory treatment or inappropriate personnel actions. The comprehensive documentation process was creating a clear record of events and circumstances that would support whatever actions proved necessary for achieving appropriate resolution of my workplace situation. The external career opportunities that Rachel had identified were becoming increasingly attractive as alternatives to continued employment at Mitchell Industries under circumstances that failed to recognize my qualifications and contributions. The prospect of joining organizations that valued operational expertise and provided advancement opportunities based on merit rather than family relationships offered professional satisfaction and financial security that might exceed what I could achieve through legal action or internal negotiations. The complexity of balancing family loyalty with professional advancement and personal integrity remained a significant challenge that would influence all decisions about future actions and their potential consequences. The dinner conversation had highlighted the difficulty of maintaining family relationships while advocating for appropriate workplace treatment and recognition of professional qualifications that family members seemed reluctant to acknowledge or value adequately. The path forward required careful strategic planning that considered multiple scenarios and their implications for achieving both short-term resolution of immediate workplace concerns and long-term career development that matched my qualifications and aspirations. The foundation had been established for pursuing whatever combination of legal, professional, and personal approaches would be necessary to restore appropriate recognition of my capabilities and contributions while preserving relationships and opportunities that remained valuable and important. Dorothy Stevens met me at Corner Bakery, Michigan Street, a casual location that provided sufficient privacy for sensitive conversation while remaining inconspicuous to anyone who might recognize us from Mitchell Industries. Her weathered hands wrapped around a steaming coffee cup as she settled into the corner booth, her expression carrying the weight of information that had clearly been troubling her since the succession announcement 2 weeks earlier. Her voice was barely above a whisper as she began revealing details about executive discussions and private family meetings that had preceded Kevin's appointment and my dramatic demotion. She'd maintained detailed files throughout the succession planning process, managing calendars and correspondence that provided comprehensive documentation of decision-making timelines and the rationale behind personnel changes that had shocked the entire organization. The revelation that emerged from Dorothy's careful recounting painted a disturbing picture of systematic exclusion from succession planning discussions that should have included input from all senior management personnel. While Kevin had been participating in strategic planning meetings and leadership development activities for months before his formal appointment, I had been deliberately excluded from these preparations despite my operational expertise and demonstrated leadership capabilities throughout various organizational challenges. Dorothy produced copies of meeting agendas and attendance lists that documented the pattern of exclusion, along with email correspondence between family members that revealed their discussions about my role in the company's future. The communications showed clear evidence of predetermined decisions about succession that prioritized family relationships over professional qualifications and operational expertise that would be essential for effective leadership in manufacturing environments. The most damaging evidence consisted of recorded conversations between Dad and Kevin during which they discussed strategies for managing employee reactions to organizational changes, including specific references to minimizing my influence and authority within the company structure. These recordings, which Dorothy had maintained as part of her executive support responsibilities, captured unguarded discussions about personnel decisions that violated both ethical standards and employment law requirements. Kevin's private comments revealed his concerns about competing with my operational knowledge and established relationships with manufacturing personnel, along with his preference for bringing in external management talent that would be more aligned with his strategic vision and less likely to challenge his authority based on institutional knowledge and practical experience. His acknowledgement that my demotion was intended to eliminate potential opposition rather than optimize organizational effectiveness provided crucial evidence of discriminatory intent. The recordings also documented Dad's reluctance to address the legal implications of dramatic personnel changes, despite warnings from Patricia Wells about potential employment law violations and the risks associated with demoting experienced management personnel without adequate justification or due process. His dismissive attitude toward legal compliance and employee relations concerns demonstrated a pattern of inappropriate decision-making that prioritized family preferences over business requirements and legal obligations. Dorothy's information revealed additional details about the financial arrangements surrounding Kevin's appointment, including compensation packages and performance incentives that far exceeded industry standards for comparable positions and experience levels. The disparity between Kevin's compensation and the reduced salary associated with my customer service position highlighted the discriminatory nature of personnel decisions that were supposedly based on objective business considerations and performance evaluations. The documentation provided by Dorothy also included evidence of employee concerns and manufacturing supervisor feedback about leadership transitions that had been systematically ignored during succession planning processes. Union representatives had expressed reservations about organizational changes that might affect working conditions and advancement opportunities, while experienced technicians had questioned the wisdom of sidelining operational expertise during periods of industry challenges and competitive pressures. Armed with this comprehensive evidence, I scheduled an immediate follow-up meeting with Amanda Torres to review the new information and discuss accelerated timelines for legal action that could no longer be delayed, given the documented evidence of discriminatory intent and systematic violations of employment law requirements. The recordings and correspondence provided the smoking gun evidence that employment attorneys rarely obtained in family business discrimination cases. Amanda's reaction to Dorothy's evidence was immediate and decisive. The recorded conversations between Dad and Kevin constituted clear evidence of discriminatory intent that would support claims for wrongful termination, workplace discrimination, and violations of employment law that protected workers from retaliatory actions based on family relationships and succession planning preferences rather than legitimate business considerations. The legal strategy shifted dramatically based on this new evidence, with Amanda recommending immediate filing of formal complaints with relevant employment agencies while simultaneously pursuing civil litigation that would seek comprehensive remedies, including reinstatement, monetary damages, and injunctive relief, requiring changes to company policies and management practices. The strength of the evidence would provide significant leverage for negotiating favorable settlements while establishing important precedents for employment law in family business contexts. The timeline for legal action accelerated to prevent destruction of additional evidence and to preserve witness testimony from employees who had observed discriminatory treatment and inappropriate personnel decisions. Amanda emphasized the importance of maintaining detailed documentation of ongoing workplace treatment while avoiding any actions that might provide justification for additional adverse employment decisions or retaliation claims. The process of filing formal legal complaints would inevitably become public information that would affect Mitchell Industries' reputation and business relationships within the automotive manufacturing community. The prospect of negative publicity and potential customer concerns about organizational stability would create additional pressure for rapid resolution of employment law violations and restoration of appropriate management structure and personnel policies. Kevin's response to the legal action was swift and defensive, with his attorneys immediately challenging the validity of evidence and questioning the appropriateness of pursuing family business disputes through external legal proceedings. His public statements emphasized his commitment to fair employment practices while privately seeking to minimize legal exposure and preserve his position as company president. Despite mounting evidence of inappropriate decision-making processes, the legal discovery process revealed additional evidence of discriminatory treatment and systematic exclusion from succession planning activities that should have included evaluation of all qualified management personnel, document production requirements, forced disclosure of internal communications, performance evaluations, and strategic planning materials that provided comprehensive documentation of biased decision-making and preferential treatment that violated employment law requirements. Depositions of key witnesses, including family members and management personnel, created permanent legal records of testimony about succession planning processes and personnel decisions that could not be modified or retracted based on subsequent strategic consideration. The formal legal proceedings eliminated opportunities for informal resolution while establishing clear accountability for discriminatory actions and their consequences. The union representatives at Mitchell Industries took formal notice of the legal proceedings and began their own investigation into potential contract violations and workplace discrimination that might affect other employees beyond the immediate family business succession disputes. Their involvement added additional complexity to legal proceedings while providing important validation of employment law concerns that extended beyond individual grievances. Manufacturing employees and supervisory personnel began expressing support for my legal action through informal communications and workplace behavior that demonstrated their recognition of the discriminatory treatment and their concerns about precedents being established for advancement opportunities and fair treatment within the organization. Their visible support provided additional evidence of workplace impact while creating pressure on company leadership to address systemic issues. The automotive manufacturing clients of Mitchell Industries began expressing concerns about organizational stability and leadership transitions that might affect production quality and delivery reliability during periods of legal uncertainty and management disruption. Customer inquiries about succession planning and operational continuity created business pressures that complemented legal proceedings in motivating rapid resolution of employment disputes. Rachel Kim's industry connections provided valuable insight into competitive implications of the legal proceedings and reputation effects that were being monitored by other automotive suppliers and manufacturing companies throughout the region. The family business succession dispute was becoming a case study in employment law compliance that would influence practices and policies at other organizations facing similar leadership transition challenges. The mediation sessions that followed initial legal filings provided structured opportunities for discussing settlement terms that might resolve employment law violations while preserving family relationships and business operations. The mediator's expertise in family business disputes and employment law created a framework for productive negotiations that balanced competing interests and legal requirements. Kevin's position during mediation revealed his growing understanding of the legal and business consequences of his succession appointment and personnel decisions. His willingness to consider modifications to organizational structure and my role within the company reflected recognition that maintaining current arrangements would be unsustainable given the evidence of discriminatory treatment and employment law violations. Dad's participation in mediation sessions demonstrated his belated recognition of legal compliance requirements and the business risks associated with family succession planning that failed to consider employment law obligations and fair treatment standards. His acknowledgement of mistakes in the decision-making process provided foundation for negotiated resolution that could address legal violations while preserving company operations and family relationships. The settlement negotiations culminated in a comprehensive agreement that restored my position as VP of Operations while providing monetary compensation for lost wages and career advancement opportunities that had been unlawfully compromised through discriminatory personnel decisions. The agreement also included policy changes requiring fair evaluation processes for all management positions and succession planning activities. Kevin's role as president continued under the settlement agreement, though with modified responsibilities that recognized the importance of operational expertise and collaborative leadership approaches that would utilize the full range of management capabilities available within the organization. The arrangement established clear boundaries and reporting relationships that would prevent future conflicts while optimizing organizational effectiveness. The policy changes required by the settlement agreement established important precedents for employment law compliance in family businesses while creating protection for employees facing discrimination based on family relationships and succession planning preferences. The reforms would benefit current and future employees by ensuring fair treatment and advancement opportunities based on merit and qualifications rather than family status. Patricia Wells, the CFO, played a crucial role in implementing settlement terms and establishing new management structure that would comply with employment law requirements while supporting effective business operations and strategic planning. Her expertise in financial management and organizational development provided valuable guidance for transitions that balanced legal compliance with operational effectiveness. Michael Barnes coordinated policy implementation and employee communications that explained organizational changes while reassuring workers about fair treatment and advancement opportunities under reformed management practices. His experience with employment relations and conflict resolution contributed to smooth transitions that maintained productivity and workplace morale during periods of adjustment. The manufacturing employees and union representatives responded positively to settlement terms and policy changes that demonstrated management commitment to fair treatment and employment law compliance. Their support for reformed practices and procedures contributed to organizational stability and effectiveness that benefited overall business performance and competitive positioning. The automotive industry clients of Mitchell Industries expressed satisfaction with leadership stability and operational continuity that emerged from successful resolution of succession planning disputes. Their confidence in organizational effectiveness and management capability supported continued business relationships and potential expansion of contractual arrangements and collaborative activities. The resolution of my employment law dispute established important precedents for family business succession planning and employment practices that would influence other organizations facing similar challenges. The comprehensive settlement agreement and policy reforms demonstrated effective approaches for balancing family interests with employment law compliance and fair treatment requirements. My restoration to VP of Operations provided opportunities to continue contributing operational expertise and leadership capabilities while working collaboratively with Kevin on strategic planning and organizational development that would benefit long-term business success and employee satisfaction. The reformed management structure created framework for productive working relationship based on mutual respect and complementary capabilities. The experience of pursuing legal action and achieving successful resolution strengthened my understanding of employment law rights and advocacy strategies that could benefit other workers facing similar challenges in family business contexts. The precedents established through my case would provide important protection for employees who might otherwise accept discriminatory treatment due to family relationship complications. The personal growth that resulted from confronting family business discrimination and successfully advocating for fair treatment created increased confidence and professional development that would benefit my continued career advancement and leadership effectiveness. The challenges overcome through legal action demonstrated the importance of standing up for employment rights despite potential risks to family relationships and business connections. The financial compensation received through the settlement agreement provided security and independence that supported continued professional development and career planning based on merit and qualifications rather than family preferences, and succession planning that failed to recognize individual capabilities and contributions. The monetary damages addressed both immediate losses and long-term career impacts of discriminatory treatment. The policy reforms implemented at Mitchell Industries created lasting improvements in employment practices and succession planning that would benefit future generations of employees and family members who would work within organizational structure designed to promote fair treatment and advancement opportunities based on merit and qualifications rather than family status and personal preferences. The success of legal action demonstrated the effectiveness of employment law protection for workers in family business contexts, while establishing important precedents that would influence practices at other organizations facing succession planning challenges. The comprehensive resolution provided model for addressing discrimination while
preserving business operations and family relationships through appropriate legal remedies and organizational reforms. The relationship with Kevin evolved into productive professional collaboration based on mutual respect and recognition of complementary capabilities that benefited overall organizational effectiveness and strategic planning. The reformed management structure created opportunities for both siblings to contribute their distinct expertise while avoiding conflicts that had previously undermined family relationships and business operations. The long-term implications of successful employment law advocacy extended beyond individual career benefits to include important contributions to workplace fairness and legal precedents that would protect other workers facing similar challenges. The willingness to pursue legal action despite personal and professional risks created positive change that benefited broader community of employees in family business contexts. The autumn light filtered through the conference room windows of Mitchell Industries as I reviewed the quarterly operational reports that demonstrated the remarkable transformation our company had undergone during the 18 months following the settlement agreement. The numbers told a compelling story of organizational renewal and improved performance that validated the importance of fair employment practices and collaborative leadership approaches in manufacturing environments. Production efficiency had increased by 23% since the implementation of reformed management policies and the restoration of collaborative decision-making processes that utilized the full range of expertise available within our leadership team. The combination of Kevin's strategic planning capabilities and my operational knowledge had created synergies that neither of us could have achieved independently, proving that family businesses could benefit significantly from inclusive succession planning that recognized diverse qualifications and complementary skill sets. The manufacturing teams had responded enthusiastically to leadership stability and fair treatment policies that provided clear advancement opportunities based on merit and performance rather than family relationships or personal preferences. Employee satisfaction surveys consistently showed improved morale and workplace engagement that translated directly into higher productivity, reduced turnover, and enhanced quality control measures that strengthened our competitive position within the automotive manufacturing sector. Union relations had stabilized considerably following the policy reforms and transparent communication practices that demonstrated management commitment to fair labor practices and collaborative problem-solving approaches.
The United Auto Workers representatives had commended Mitchell Industries for establishing employment practices that served as a model for other family businesses seeking to balance succession planning with worker rights and organizational effectiveness. Customer relationships had strengthened significantly as automotive manufacturers gained confidence in our organizational stability and leadership continuity during a period when many competitors were struggling with succession planning challenges and operational disruptions. Our reputation for reliability and quality had been enhanced rather than damaged by the public resolution of employment law disputes that demonstrated our commitment to fair treatment and legal compliance. The financial performance of Mitchell Industries during this period exceeded projections and industry benchmarks, with revenue growth of 37% and profit margin improvements that reflected the operational efficiencies achieved through collaborative leadership and employee engagement initiatives. The success validated the business case for fair employment practices while demonstrating that legal compliance and ethical management could enhance rather than compromise competitive performance. Kevin's development as a company president had accelerated significantly once he began working collaboratively with experienced operational personnel, rather than attempting to implement strategic initiatives without adequate input from manufacturing expertise. His consulting background provided valuable analytical capabilities that complemented practical knowledge in ways that benefited strategic planning and organizational development throughout the company. The working relationship between Kevin and me had evolved into genuine professional respect and effective collaboration that surprised both of us, given the initial conflicts and legal proceedings that had characterized the early stages of his appointment. The structured communication protocols and defined responsibilities established through the settlement agreement had created framework for productive interaction that maximized our respective strengths while minimizing potential conflicts. Dad's perspective on family business management had undergone significant transformation as he recognized the legal and practical consequences of succession planning that failed to consider employment law requirements and fair treatment standards. His acknowledgement of mistakes in the decision-making process had created opportunities for improved family relationships based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical authority and assumed loyalty. Mom's role in facilitating family healing and communication had been crucial for rebuilding relationships that had been strained by legal proceedings and workplace conflicts. Her patience and diplomatic skills had helped all family members navigate the complex emotional dynamics of resolving employment disputes while preserving personal connections that remained important despite professional disagreements and legal challenges. The broader impact of our employment law case had extended far beyond Mitchell Industries to influence practices and policies at other family businesses throughout the region and automotive manufacturing industry. Employment attorneys regularly referenced our settlement agreement and policy reforms as examples of effective approaches for addressing succession planning challenges while maintaining compliance with fair treatment requirements and worker protection laws. Professional organizations and business associations had invited me to speak about the experience of pursuing employment law remedies in family business contexts, providing opportunities to share insights about advocacy strategies and resolution approaches that could benefit other workers facing similar challenges. The speaking engagements had enhanced my professional reputation while contributing to broader understanding of employment rights and legal protection in family business environments. The precedent established through our legal case had influenced legislation and regulatory guidance related to family business employment practices, with policymakers citing our settlement terms and policy reforms as models for preventing discrimination and ensuring fair treatment in succession planning contexts. The legal precedent had created protection for workers who might otherwise accept discriminatory treatment due to family relationship complications and fear of retaliation. Dorothy Stevens had retired with recognition and appreciation for her courage in providing evidence that proved essential for achieving justice and organizational reform. Her willingness to document inappropriate decision-making and speak truthfully about workplace discrimination had demonstrated the important role that long-term employees could play in promoting accountability and fair treatment within family business organizations. Carol Henderson had returned to Mitchell Industries as a consultant specializing in succession planning and employment law compliance, using her experience and institutional knowledge to help other family businesses avoid the mistakes that had created legal and operational problems at our company. Her expertise in organizational development and policy implementation had become increasingly valuable as other companies sought to prevent similar employment law disputes. Amanda Torres had used our case as foundation for expanding her practice to include preventive consulting services that helped family businesses establish succession planning processes and employment policies that would comply with legal requirements while preserving family relationships and organizational effectiveness. Her expertise in employment law and family business dynamics had made her a sought-after advisor for companies facing similar challenges. Michael Barnes had implemented comprehensive training programs for family business management and employment law compliance that were being adopted by other companies seeking to prevent discrimination and ensure fair treatment during succession planning processes. His experience managing our organizational transition had provided valuable insights about change management and employee relations that benefited broader professional community. Patricia Wells had developed financial management and compensation systems that ensured equitable treatment and advancement opportunities for all employees regardless of family relationships or succession planning preferences. Her expertise in organizational development and performance measurement had contributed to sustainable business practices that supported both legal compliance and competitive performance. Rachel Kim had been promoted to regional sales director at her automotive supplier company, with her network of industry contacts and knowledge of best practices making her an influential voice for fair employment practices and professional development throughout the automotive manufacturing sector. Her friendship and support during my legal challenge had demonstrated the importance of external professional relationships and industry connections. David Park had completed his project management certification and established his own construction consulting firm with our experience navigating family business conflicts and legal challenges, providing valuable perspective on organizational dynamics and conflict resolution that benefited his professional development and client relationships. His support during the legal proceedings had strengthened our personal relationship while demonstrating his commitment to fairness and justice. The personal growth that resulted from pursuing legal action and achieving successful resolution had transformed my understanding of professional advocacy and leadership development in ways that extended far beyond the immediate workplace benefits. The experience had demonstrated the importance of standing up for employment rights despite potential risks while building confidence and capabilities that would benefit continued career advancement and organizational contributions. The financial security achieved through settlement compensation had provided foundation for continued professional development and community involvement that reflected my commitment to supporting other workers facing employment law challenges and discrimination in family business contexts. The monetary recovery had addressed immediate losses while creating resources for long-term career planning and civic engagement. The policy reforms implemented at Mitchell Industries had created lasting improvements in employment practices that would benefit future generations of workers and family members who would participate in organizational activities and succession planning processes. The comprehensive changes had established systems and procedures that would prevent discrimination while promoting merit-based advancement and fair treatment standards. The relationships with manufacturing employees and supervisory personnel had strengthened considerably as they recognized the positive impact of legal advocacy and policy reform on their own working conditions and advancement opportunities. Their support for reformed practices had contributed to workplace culture improvements that enhanced productivity and job satisfaction throughout the organization. The community recognition for employment law advocacy and organizational reform had created opportunities for continued civic engagement and professional development that would benefit broader goals of promoting fair treatment and legal compliance in family business environments. The public profile associated with successful legal action had generated speaking opportunities and consulting requests that expanded professional influence and community impact. The transformation of Mitchell Industries from a family business characterized by succession planning conflicts and employment law violations into a model organization for fair treatment and collaborative leadership had demonstrated the potential for positive change when workers were willing to advocate for their rights and employers were committed to legal compliance and organizational improvement. The ongoing collaboration between Kevin and me in managing Mitchell Industries had proven that family relationships could survive and even strengthen when based on mutual respect and professional competence rather than hierarchical authority and assumed loyalty. The reformed management structure had created framework for continued cooperation and organizational effectiveness that would benefit long-term business success and family harmony. The success of employment law advocacy in achieving both individual justice and organizational reform had validated the importance of legal protection and enforcement mechanisms that enabled workers to challenge discrimination and unfair treatment despite personal and professional risks. The comprehensive resolution had created precedents and protections that would benefit other employees facing similar challenges in family business contexts. The influence of our case on employment law development and family business practices had extended throughout the automotive manufacturing industry and broader business community, with legal scholars and practitioners studying our settlement agreement and policy reforms as examples of effective approaches for addressing succession planning challenges while maintaining legal compliance and organizational effectiveness. The personal satisfaction derived from achieving justice and organizational reform through legal advocacy had provided lasting fulfillment that exceeded the immediate workplace benefits and financial compensation. The knowledge that my willingness to pursue legal action had created positive change for other workers and established important precedents for employment law enforcement had enhanced the meaning and significance of the entire experience. The professional development that resulted from navigating complex legal proceedings and organizational transformation had enhanced my capabilities and credentials in ways that would benefit continued career advancement and industry leadership. The experience had demonstrated skills in conflict resolution, legal advocacy, and change management that were applicable to broader professional contexts and leadership opportunities. The commitment to continued advocacy for employment rights and fair treatment in family business environments had become an important aspect of my professional identity and community involvement. The platform created through successful legal action had generated opportunities for promoting policy reforms and best practices that would benefit other workers facing discrimination and unfair treatment in succession planning contexts. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows of my renovated corner office as I prepared for the annual Mitchell Industries Leadership Retreat, an event that had become a cornerstone of our transformed company culture. 3 years had passed since the settlement agreement, and the changes implemented during that turbulent period had evolved into sustainable business practices that exceeded everyone's expectations for organizational effectiveness and employee satisfaction. The retreat agenda reflected the collaborative leadership model that Kevin and I had developed through necessity but had embraced with genuine enthusiasm as we witnessed its positive impact on every aspect of company operations. The 2-day gathering would bring together department heads, supervisory personnel, and employee representatives to review performance metrics, discuss strategic initiatives, and plan for continued growth in an increasingly competitive automotive manufacturing marketplace. Patricia Wells knocked on my office door, carrying the financial reports that would anchor our strategic planning discussions during the retreat. Her analysis showed that Mitchell Industries had achieved record profitability while maintaining the highest employee satisfaction ratings in company history, a combination that had attracted attention from business schools and management consultants seeking to understand the practical application of collaborative leadership principles in family business environments. The transformation of our workplace culture had generated interest from academic researchers studying organizational behavior and employment law implementation, with several universities requesting permission to conduct case studies of our policy reforms and their measurable impact on business performance. The research findings consistently demonstrated that fair employment practices and inclusive decision-making processes enhanced rather than compromised competitive effectiveness and financial performance. Kevin's evolution as a company president had surprised industry observers who had initially questioned his readiness for operational leadership in manufacturing environments. His willingness to acknowledge knowledge gaps and collaborate with experienced personnel had accelerated his learning curve while building credibility with employees who valued practical expertise alongside strategic thinking capabilities. The combination of his analytical skills and my operational knowledge had created leadership synergies that neither of us could have achieved independently. The manufacturing floor buzzed with activity as production teams prepared for the quarterly quality review that had become a source of pride throughout the organization. Employee-led improvement initiatives had generated cost savings that exceeded $2 million annually while enhancing product quality and customer satisfaction ratings that strengthened our relationships with automotive manufacturers facing increasing pressure for supplier performance and reliability. Dorothy Stevens had agreed to serve as keynote speaker for the leadership retreat, sharing her perspective on organizational transformation and the importance of ethical leadership in family business contexts. Her retirement had been celebrated throughout the company as recognition of her contributions to positive change, and her continued involvement as a consultant and mentor reflected the value placed on institutional knowledge and moral courage in challenging situations. The union representatives had requested participation in retreat planning activities, reflecting their confidence in management commitment to collaborative problem-solving and employee engagement that had eliminated traditional adversarial relationships between labor and management. Their input on strategic initiatives had proven valuable for identifying implementation challenges and ensuring that business improvements benefited all stakeholders rather than favoring short-term profits over long-term sustainability. Carol Henderson's consulting practice had expanded to include family businesses throughout the Midwest, with her expertise in succession planning and employment law compliance making her a sought-after advisor for companies seeking to avoid the conflicts and legal challenges that had characterized our early succession period. Her work with other organizations had validated the broader applicability of policy reforms and collaborative leadership approaches that had proven successful at Mitchell Industries. Amanda Torres had established a specialized practice focusing on preventive employment law consulting for family businesses, using our case as a foundation for developing comprehensive compliance programs that addressed succession planning challenges while preserving family relationships and organizational effectiveness. Her success in preventing employment law disputes had demonstrated the value of proactive legal guidance compared to reactive litigation strategies. The community impact of our organizational transformation had extended beyond business performance to include civic engagement and charitable activities that reflected employee pride and community commitment. The Mitchell Industries Foundation had increased its annual giving by 200% while expanding programming to include employee volunteer initiatives and educational partnerships with local schools and universities. My speaking engagements at professional conferences and business schools had provided opportunities to share insights about employment law advocacy and organizational reform that could benefit other workers facing discrimination and unfair treatment in family business contexts. The platform created through successful legal action had generated consulting opportunities and board positions that expanded professional influence while contributing to broader goals of promoting fair treatment and legal compliance. The personal relationships within our family had strengthened considerably as we learned to separate business responsibilities from family dynamics while maintaining respect for different perspectives and capabilities. Sunday dinners had resumed with genuine warmth and mutual appreciation, though conversations about company matters were carefully managed to preserve the collaborative professional relationships that had become essential for organizational success. David Park's construction consulting firm had grown substantially, with his experience navigating complex family business conflicts providing valuable perspective for clients facing organizational challenges and relationship dynamics that affected business performance. Our personal relationship had deepened through shared experiences of professional growth and community involvement that reflected common values about fairness and justice. Rachel Kim had accepted a promotion to regional vice president at her automotive supplier company, with her network of industry contacts and expertise in best practices making her an influential advocate for professional development and fair employment practices throughout the automotive manufacturing sector. Her friendship and continued support had provided valuable perspective on industry trends and competitive dynamics that benefited strategic planning at Mitchell Industries. The policy reforms implemented at our company had influenced employment practices at other family businesses throughout the region, with several organizations adopting similar approaches to succession planning and performance evaluation that prioritized merit-based advancement and fair treatment standards. The demonstration effect of our success had created positive changes that benefited workers throughout the local business community. The financial security achieved through settlement compensation had provided foundation for continued professional development and community involvement, including establishment of a scholarship program for students pursuing careers in manufacturing and engineering. The educational initiative reflected commitment to supporting workforce development while honoring the memory of grandparents who had valued education and practical skills. The quarterly board meetings had evolved into collaborative strategic planning sessions that utilized diverse perspectives and expertise to address complex business challenges and market opportunities. The inclusion of independent directors with relevant industry experience had enhanced decision-making processes while providing accountability mechanisms that ensured continued compliance with legal requirements and ethical standards. The employee recognition programs implemented as part of organizational reform had created workplace culture that celebrated achievement and innovation while providing clear pathways for advancement based on performance and contribution rather than personal relationships or family connections. The merit-based systems had enhanced motivation and engagement while attracting talented personnel who valued fair treatment and professional development opportunities. The annual employee satisfaction surveys consistently showed improvements in workplace morale, job security perceptions, and confidence in management decision-making that translated into reduced turnover and enhanced productivity throughout the organization. The positive workplace culture had become a competitive advantage for recruiting and retaining skilled personnel in a tight labor market. The industry recognition for employment law compliance and organizational excellence had generated positive publicity and customer confidence that supported business development and market expansion initiatives. The reputation for fair treatment and ethical business practices had become part of our value proposition for automotive manufacturers seeking reliable suppliers with stable workforce and strong operational capabilities. The ongoing collaboration with employment law organizations and professional associations had provided opportunities to contribute to policy development and best practices that would benefit other workers facing discrimination and unfair treatment in family business environments. The advocacy work had enhanced professional reputation while creating positive change that extended far beyond individual career benefits. The success of legal action in achieving both individual justice and organizational reform had validated the importance of employment law protection and enforcement mechanisms that enabled workers to challenge discrimination despite personal and professional risks. The comprehensive resolution had created precedents and safeguards that would benefit other employees facing similar challenges while demonstrating that positive change was possible through persistent advocacy and legal action.
Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.